Hello everyone, my name is Rafal and welcome to my vlog. So in today's vlog, I just want to talk about the 10 most common mistakes made by headshot photographers. So recently I have done a post with all those mistakes, and I post them on several different social media platforms, and I have received a lot of emails and messages from you guys to give you a little bit more explanation what I meant by some of those points, because I think they're not really clear. So again, I decided to do this vlog and actually dive a little bit deeper into this and explain what I meant exactly in all those points which I've made. So let's jump into this and let's clarify everything what I have said in that post. So the mistake number one was using the wrong lens. So what I meant by that is, for creating the headshot, you have to have a lens with specific focal length. And I've been receiving, a lot of emails, and people are asking me if I can use, let's say, 50mm wide angle lens for creating the headshots. Of course you can, but you're not gonna get, I think, the desired results, and it's much difficult to get this specific look. So my recommendation is using the lens which has between 105 to about 200mm focal length. I personally use lenses, I'm using 70-200, but my preferable focal length for all my headshots is between 160 and 200 mil, and that's my recommendation. I know there is variety of different lenses. You can work with zoom lenses, you can work with fixed lenses. There's a lot of options out there, but what I meant by, again, using the wrong lens is not the using, you have to use specific lens, but what I meant was more that you have to have lens with specific focal length, which kind of helps you to create the specific look. Also, there are some studies done on this. There's a lot of tests, and I'm sure you guys can also dive into this on YouTube and other different platforms, would actually show you exactly the difference between different focal lengths. And as you probably can see, between 160 and 200, those are the kind of the focal lengths which creates the best headshots. And most of my work you guys see, I work on that focal length. So I hope that's gonna be clear. So the point number two, what I've made, was poor direction of light. And so what I meant by that is, with the lighting is very tricky. You have to be not only very precise, how to kind of direct the light, but also what I found, and this is, I'm going to try to explain this in a very detail, that the biggest mistake what we do as a headshot photographers, we plant the light in one spot and we work with the subject and we're hoping to get the good results. And quite often, not too many of us also working with the lights, moving them to different sides, moving them higher, lower, closer, moving them away. And this is what I've learned, because I can assure you that each client is different, and you have to, maybe not using different lighting for each person, but you have to have a different direction of light for each person. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to figure it out, how to light the person, which gonna gives you the best results. So my recommendation, again, is not only kind of having one setup and just try to shoot and try to hoping to get the best results. Work with the lights, move them around, and you will see that also gives you a little bit of training, how to see light, how to direct the light, how to kind of create this different kind of light, of direction of light, to give you kind of the best result for each individual. And again, it took me a while to figure that out, but that was one of the biggest mistakes I've done over the years, that I was basically using the similar setup and I didn't move the lights at all, and the results sometimes were not what I was looking for. But as soon as I started working with the lights a little bit more and moving them back forth, higher, lower, as I said, closer, far away, and try to kind of like find the sweetest spot for each person, all of a sudden my work got definitely better. So that's what I highly recommend. So number 3 was not focusing on the eyes. So this is pretty obvious, and I don't think that needs a lot of explanation, but I want to add a little bit of information here, especially when you're working on this, specific focal length between, as I said, 160 to 200, and you basically shoot wide open, and I know a lot of you guys do that. This area which covers your focus is very, very small, so even tiny move kind of can put you out of focus, and you might basically lose the focus from the eyes. And again, I've been there, and I had a lot of issues with that because I was losing a lot of good images. That's why I decided to move my aperture to work between 3.5 to 5.6, so I have this area a little bit wider, and even if I move or my client moves a little bit, I'm not losing that focus. And this is extremely important because that gives you a little bit of freedom to move around. Also, you're not going to be losing a lot of shots, and you don't have to kind of be so precise because you have that area to move back and forth and still have the person's eyes in focus. So this is one of the biggest mistakes what I see in headshots photographers, that they shooting very, very wide open, and then one eye is basically out of focus, the other one is in the focus, or you have tip of the nose out of focus. Sometimes give you this really nice effect, but it's really difficult to maintain. And if you actually doing a headshot session, you want to make sure that like you're also working in this kind of like safe area, that like you're not gonna miss the shot. So that's what I would highly recommend. So number 4 was bad face expression. So this is something which I want to kind of dig a little bit more deeper and tell you where the problems are. So the first thing what I always say when there's bad face expression, basically the way I see it, if there's no engagement between the person you're photographing and you. So sometimes you see those images when someone is looking at you, but their mind is somewhere else, and you can kind of sense that by looking at the image. So I think a lot of those problems comes when we focus way too much on the technical part, and we, let's say, trying to get our image perfect when it comes from the technical part, but we're not engaging with the person, and the person's mind just kind of fly away, and you're shooting them, but they're not there. They're mentally thinking about something else, and then when you look at those images, you can sense that they're not really engaged with the camera, they're not really engaged with you, they're not really engaged with the photo shoot. And then you can basically see those things throughout the photos. So make sure that you're not only focusing on the image itself or the technical part, you definitely engage with the person, you talk to them, you interact with them, you actually making sure that they're focusing on you, and then they connected, and then they engage with you, because that's what's going to make those images interesting. And then whoever's going to see those images, they're going to see the person who was at the front of your camera have this kind of interaction, and looks interesting, and it looks approaching, looks kind of, there's some emotions coming out of their face. If their mind is somewhere else, you're not gonna get it. And I see this is one of the biggest issues nowadays, that I see amazing images from the kind of technical point of view, but there is no engagement, there's no face expression, there is just kind of dead face, which is the person's mind is completely out of it. And I can sense that. So pay attention to this, and again, don't kind of focus way too much on the technical part. Make sure that the person who's at the front of you is really engaged with you, and is part of the shoot. It's not something you're photographing. They need to also be heavily involved in what is going on between you and the person. So remember that. So number 5 was awkward pose, and this is something what I pay also a lot of attention. There's 2 kind of ways you can pose the person, and that's how I do it. First of all, you can make the person stand, or you make the person sit down. So I use special, stool where they can actually just, make themselves comfortable, and then you can kind of regulate the height, how high or how low they are, so they feel comfortable when they're standing. One of those things I always ask people to lean forward, and that kind of gives you that engagement with the camera. If they have to just stand at the front like a soldier, I'm not really big fan of those photos. There's no connection. People usually kind of feel weird. So make sure you're moving them to different sides. The more they move, you can basically take their mind off what's really going on and basically make them look interesting. So don't kind of try to stick to one pose where they actually, as I said, they stand like a soldiers and you shoot them. Let them move, let them lean forward, kind of turn their body to one side to other, and you will see the images. They're gonna look much more interesting. So number 6 is shooting from the wrong angle. So usually what I suggest is always try to shoot your client or your subject on the eye level, so your camera and the person's eyes are at the same level. That is actually highly recommended by every headshot photographer nowadays. So that's not, I would say, it's a common sense. If you have your camera higher, those images look kind of intimidating. If you're shooting from kind of low angle, sometimes there's an issue with double chin, and some kind of like the images just look weird. So that's what I highly recommend. Most of the headshots, which you guys probably see online, which you probably really like, that's the way photographers are shooting. It's kind of like giving this equality, and the images just look better. So number 7 was confusing composition. So what I meant by that is sometimes especially when you're shooting cinematic headshots, you want to make sure that the background and the person you're shooting kind of like there's some kind of balance and the flow between the background and the person. So if you have this weird composition where this background is kind of like I don't know, just the dimension or the kind of lines, just they don't kind of align together, the image looks kind of weird. So before you actually start shooting, I would suggest take a couple test shots, kind of take a closer look if this whole thing kind of works together, and there's a balance between, as I said, the background and the subject. And that's usually there's several other rules, like rule of thirds and golden rule, which I also recommend to kind of take a quick look what those rules are all about, and also you can implement them into your composition. But mainly what I say is make sure there's connection, there's a balance, and everything kind of works together. So that takes a little bit of time sometimes. You have to definitely take a closer look and analyze everything. But that's what I meant by that mistake, that a lot of us, we don't pay attention to the background, and this whole thing is kind of out of whack and just kind of doesn't work together. And then we kind of, even we have a good face expression and the lighting is all good, but there's no, I would say, some kind of balance within the image, which makes the image looks better. So number 8 is bad cropping. So this is something which there's a lot of discussion about, is what is the headshot and how should it be cropped. There's different schools, there's different photographers doing different things. I have to tell you, my approach is I'm trying to always shoot a little bit wider, and then I can crop exactly where I want the image to be and how the image is going to look like. I know there are some photographers who, for example, the cropping top of the head, there's still discussion about it. I personally think those images looks really cool, and I really like them if this is done properly, and also the client is aware of that. So, and they are okay with this, because I had a story a few years ago when I did like a corporate photo shoot, and I was so excited about this cropping top of the head, where I shot this entire session with everyone who was part of this shoot, and they had all had cropped, and the clients is like, we don't like that, like we want to have this whole thing kind of with our whole heads in the image. And I spent hours photoshopping this whole thing to make this work. So you know, again, make sure you actually know exactly where you're going. If you don't feel that you know exactly what you like, especially when you're starting shooting headshots, try to shoot a little bit wider, and then you can crop the image the way you want it. With cropping the head, again, if you like the style and your clients are okay with that, go for it. You're gonna be kind of creating your own style. So if you have that consistency, when clients, they see what you're doing and they like it, you know, you can kind of stick to this and just cropping the image the way you like, and then that's what's also going to show your style of your headshot. So number 9 was the blur from the camera shake. So there are several rules which I follow to kind of avoid that problem. And most of the time what is happening, let's say, especially when we're shooting around, as I said, 200 mil, every little tiny move can be recorded by the camera. So the rule what I'm following is, let's say if I'm shooting 200 millimeter, usually my shutter speed is no less than 1/200 of a second. And that's what I'm following, because if you, let's say, shooting 200 mil and your camera is set up to 1/60 of a second for the shutter speed, then you're gonna definitely you're probably gonna see that some of those images, they're gonna be blurred, because you're gonna kind of move your camera and the camera is gonna record this. Another thing to avoid that is you can use the tripod to make sure, you know, the camera is stabilized, and you know, you're not going to have this problem. But the issue is that shooting with the tripod is another, you know, tricky part. Some people like it. I personally don't. I shoot all my headshots handheld because I like to move, I like to turn, I like to kind of take out, I don't want to say different angles, but you know, just work with the subject. And I like to be on my feet and move around. So tripod, I tried it several times, didn't work for me. But then also I have to adjust my shutter speed to make sure my images, they're not gonna get this you know, unexpected and also unwanted you know, blur on some of those images if I don't set up this properly. So make sure do follow that rule to avoid that, and then, you know, like, it's gonna save your sometimes life, because again, I've been there, I've done this, I had a lot of issues with that because I didn't know how to deal with this. But this is something which, you know, I'm sure it's really easy fix, and it's, you know, you just need to follow this simple rule and you're gonna be all good. So number 10 is over retouching, and I don't want to spend a lot of time. You guys know exactly what I mean by that, and I found this is one of the biggest issues nowadays. I know retouching is not easy part and it's really difficult, but my recommendation, if you are retouching your images and you think you're overdoing it, either try to stay to basically simple retouching. Don't go crazy, don't overdo things, because it's gonna make your images looks actually worse. So try to avoid all this, you know, crazy blurring the skin, all this, you know, crazy stuff with you know, over contrasting, or, you know, playing with weird colors and adding some bizarre toning and all this crazy things. Especially when you're shooting for the corporate stuff, you know, people, they want the images which they look more natural. So sometimes just do the basic stuff, and don't kind of overkill the images, because, you know, it's not gonna it's gonna just make your work look worse. There's several techniques which I highly recommend it. It's definitely dodge and burn when it comes to retouching the skin. I don't personally use frequency separation anymore, for obvious reasons, because I think it just kills the texture and the images. If you don't know how to do it, or you just overdo it, then it just looks bad. So be careful with that, and practice as much as you can retouching, because that's also what's going to take your images to the next level. But this is, I would say, one of the biggest issues nowadays with headshot photographers, that, you know, they try to push this whole thing to the limit, and just basically just making their images, as I said, looks worse. And I've seen this many times where the original image from the camera looks way better than the retouched image. So just be careful with that. So I hope that was interesting and that gives you a little bit of clarification on how to deal with those mistakes and how to avoid them or how to fix them. If you're still unsure about some of those things what I have said, please feel free to email me or message me, and I'll be more than happy to clarify some of those stuff and answer all your questions. So have a fantastic weekend. Thank you for watching and stay tuned, and I'll talk to you guys shortly. Bye bye.